Struggling single dad rescues beaten woman and her child. Days later, police reveal their shocking identity. Ethan Carter's life hadn't been easy for a long time. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years ago, he'd been raising his 6-year-old son, Liam, alone while juggling 2 part-time jobs. Money was tight, exhaustion was constant, but Ethan never complained. Every day, he reminded himself that as long as Liam had a roof over his head and food on the table, they were going to be okay. One rainy night, while driving home from his late shift at the diner, Ethan noticed something unusual on the side of the road. A woman, bruised and shivering, was holding a tiny girl, no more than 2 years old, close to her chest. They were drenched from the rain, barefoot, and looked terrified. Ethan slowed down, unsure at first, but when he saw the fear in the woman's tear-stained eyes, his instincts kicked in. He pulled over, rolled down his window, and asked softly, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman hesitated, clutching her daughter tighter, but her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, just get us away from here." Without a second thought, Ethan opened his car door and handed her a dry blanket from the back seat. The little girl was crying softly, her tiny hands gripping her mother's sweater like her life depended on it. Ethan took them to his small apartment. He had little to offer, just some leftover pasta, a warm shower, and dry clothes for the child, but the woman, who introduced herself as Grace, seemed grateful beyond words. "You don't know how much this means to me," she said quietly, avoiding his eyes. "We just needed to get away." Ethan didn't press for details. He knew pain when he saw it. Instead, he gave Grace and her daughter, Sophie, his own bed while he and Liam slept on the couch. Over the next 2 days, Grace barely spoke about what happened. Ethan learned only bits and pieces. She had escaped an abusive situation, and the bruises on her arms and the haunted look in her eyes told him the rest. Ethan didn't have much, but he shared everything he could, a few dollars for food, warm meals, safety, kindness. Liam, innocent and full of heart, shared his favorite toy with Sophie, making her laugh for the first time since arriving. That sound alone made every sacrifice worth it. On the 3rd day, Ethan woke to a knock on his door. To his surprise, it was the police. His heart raced, wondering if Grace was in trouble, but instead, one officer stepped forward with tears in his eyes. "Sir, do you know who you helped?" Ethan shook his head, confused. The officer explained that Grace and Sophie had been missing for weeks. They weren't just a mother and daughter escaping a violent home, they were the wife and child of a decorated firefighter who had died saving people in a burning building 2 months earlier. Since his death, Grace had been trapped in a nightmare with someone who claimed to protect her but turned out to be a cruel abuser. They had been on the run, hiding, with no place to go until Ethan stopped that night. Grace, now standing in the doorway with tears streaming down her face, whispered, "I don't know why you stopped for us, but you saved our lives." The officers assured her that she and Sophie were safe now and that help was on the way. But before leaving, Grace turned to Ethan, holding his hand tightly. "You didn't just rescue us from the rain, you reminded me there are still good men in this world. My husband would have wanted someone like you to be there for us." Ethan stood frozen, overwhelmed by emotion. He wasn't a hero, he was just a struggling single dad trying to do the right thing. But at that moment, he realized something profound: kindness doesn't need wealth or power. Sometimes, it's just about opening your door, offering a meal, or giving someone a reason to believe in humanity again. Days later, Ethan received a small card in the mail from Grace and Sophie. Inside was a simple message: "Because of you, we have hope again. We'll never forget your kindness." Along with it was a photo of Sophie holding Liam's toy, smiling wide, a symbol of innocence and healing returning to her life. For Ethan, the world still had its hardships. Bills didn't stop coming, and life wasn't suddenly easy. But something inside him had changed. He understood now that even the smallest act of compassion could alter the course of someone's life. And as he tucked Liam in that night, he whispered, "Son, no matter how hard things get, we always help when we can. That's what makes us truly rich." And for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt like he had more than enough.